It has just started.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, hi everyone. This is SIG Scheduling meeting. This meeting is recorded as usual. So, please behave nice and let's get started. We only have one agenda today from Bridgman.
Yeah. Should I start?
Yeah.
Okay, so recently I suggested a mechanism to limit the placements. This is a similar limit to the one that we have for nodes, so a percentage nodes to score. So I suggest adding the same for placements or percentage of placements to score. And I also suggest a limit. So a couple of questions. So one question yesterday was raised that maybe the default that we suggest here, maybe it will be hard to change. But I have doubts because I think I saw the node limit default formula being changed throughout the years. So I wanted some clarity on that. And also it was raised on the yesterday's WAS meeting whether like to include this in CAP, but I'm unsure how many details we should include in CAP. Like, should we include the details about the formula or not?
Yeah, so when it comes to the change of the default, I believe that was my generic concern, right? Yesterday, because in general, default should be treated as part of the API, right? It's the value that if you don't specify anything will be used. And that's just like a general concern that there is this Hirum's law that I sent yesterday and sending today, that whatever you document on the API surface, whatever like mostly like document or like whatever you construct the API, no matter what you promise in the contract, like in the end, actual observable behavior of the system is what users care about, and in the future there might be people depending on that. But if you are saying that we have a precedence for like changing default for like number of nodes to be considered for scoring, then I guess that's fine. Like it's I wouldn't treat this as blocking. And I agree with like other part of the story here that it's really hard to figure out the good default now, right? Without really having this feature being used by users and seeing how it behaves in various scenarios. So I guess we should start with something, and if we need to change that in future, I believe that will be doable.
Yeah, but I think that the only observable behavior of the system in case of this variable is the like performance. I think they
it might be a trade-off, right?
Observe any other property of this limitation other
so
than
in a way it's trade-off between performance and optimality in a way, right?
Yes, but it's hard to like expect some optimality in this case.
Yeah, but like in general, the less placements you consider, the more likely you are that you will miss the best one. But yeah, I agree that it's hard really to like say anything now without really usage of this API and like this task in general. Yeah.
Sorry, got disconnected for a moment. Did I miss anything?
I don't think it changes. Yeah, much even to summarize. Only. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the same as yesterday's discussion, right? So it's an API, but it's not that visible to the user. So maybe we could change it if we really need to. But it's very hard to come up with any reasonable change anyway, I think.
Mm-hmm. And just to confirm, do you think that this approach with percentage nodes to score is the right one. So I suppose, like I discussed this already with Maciej and Dominic. Kenzie, do you agree with this approach?
Yeah, I think I agree with this, overall approach, and there's some discussion about default value and stuff, but overall I think it looks good.
All right, thanks. So regarding the CAP update, I haven't. So I don't really know the convention. Like, how many details do we want to include in the CAP? Do we want to only specify that we are adding this field, why we are adding it, and that the default will be implementation defined, or do I also like add information on how we came up with the default value?
I think it would be good to have a formula itself in the CAP.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Will it cause problems if we want to change it or not? Like, because that will mean it is sort of documented, right? So maybe.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Even if we don't put formula there, code is still open source, and like customers or like users will if they're interested, they will take a look, right? How it's. I don't think it's by hiding it or like not putting it in CAP we are gaining much. So
okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. So I think that's all my questions answered.
All right. Oh yeah, Maciej, next topic.
Yes, I just wanted to bring to your attention as on yesterday's meeting that I opened the CAP update for beta promotion of workload API and gang scheduling. It proposes a few more things except of the beta promotion, which is like removing the delayed preemption initiative from the CAP and relying on the workload level preemption for preempting during the product scheduling cycle. So the workload level preemption becomes a beta blocker of this CAP. And as a result, we want to merge all the feature guides into one of them because we don't see a point in running the API and can scheduling without the preemption support. So this CAP proposes the min count mutability for product and product templates and the changes to the scheduler side related to the placement visible extension points that we'll add.
Okay, great. I need to take down reviewing CAPs. I mean, yeah, I'll take a look.
Thanks.
So one more thing, kind of related, but for the other CAP, for workload hour preemption, was the thing that we discussed yesterday with the other Maciej Wyrzut, who I see is on the call. So you may remember that for 136 we had this discussion like what to do with post filters, and especially like out of tree post filters for tasks. Right, because the problem is with tasks they may essentially not work, right? They are not aware of the task logic, so we may not be able to find like scheduling with topology hour scheduling. So we run the preemption, and if there's like a custom post filter, it will very likely not work. And we discussed this yesterday with Maciej, and we believe the simplest solution is actually to like go with the idea that for the pod group preemption, we shouldn't be running pod by pod post filters, but rather the pod group post filter. Right? So those like pod by pod post filters should be disabled in that case. Right, Maciej? Like that was you are, I think, muted. Not sure if you, yeah. Correct me if I.
No, well, I fully agree with that. I mean, I'm not even sure whether this is only for topology hour scheduling.
No, not only, right? But so that I said, it should be like actually part of the VAP, right? The workload hour preemption CAP and like beta graduation. So figuring out, like maybe not figuring out, because I think it sounds obvious, but I would like to hear like Kenzei and Dominic and Maciej put on that. But definitely like documenting that for beta, I think that's what we should do.
So this is definitely what we currently have. And we agreed at some point that running pod by pod post filters means that we would have to implement delayed preemption and similar mechanisms.
Yeah, but we are not doing delayed preemption now. So yeah.
Our post filters, yes. So we are not doing it. And probably everything can be achieved in the pod group post filter, assuming that each plugin is aware that this is pod group level. But obviously, if we introduce the pod group level, it will be also.
Exactly, because we are introducing a new extension point, so we don't have to worry about like backward compatibility.
And we believe that the algorithm for preemption and retrieval would be completely analogous to the algorithm of VAP preemption. Probably it could be generalized for any other action that we could execute, but that was like the effect of my investigation of the problem. Kenzei may have some other thoughts, or Maciek.
So, are you proposing that we're gonna eventually remove pod level post filter extension point, or I mean,
I think
go
what
ahead.
we are proposing is to not run the pod group post filter during pod group cycle and only rely on the pod group post filter in the pod group cycle.
Not run post filter.
Pod,
I think.
yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that assumes that all the use cases of pod level post filter can be moved to pod group post filter eventually, right? And I'm not sure if this assumption is correct or not. I mean, post filter for preemption is just one use case of post filter today, and there could be several other post filter use cases that we know or we may not know in the world, and like for example, like if plugin ever wants to do some cleanup at the post filter phase, I mean cleanup. Okay, so anyway, so I think we may need to be a bit more careful about like that decision. But yeah, that's my like initial impression about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we need to make a decision actually, but I think this is our current understanding, that we think that it is possible to just rely on pod group or the top level post filter, but we probably don't have to take a decision right now.
Yeah, Matt.
So that's a good point, Kenzei, that preemption is like potentially only part of what people are implementing is post filter. And I agree we should analyze this more, but I believe even for use cases like cleanup, it still should be doable with pod group, right? Because with pod group, you essentially get information about all the pods that we're trying to schedule.
Yeah.
So I doubt we are losing any information in that case, right? So my intuition, it's just intuition, so I agree we should analyze this more carefully, is that it should be doable in general, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that we are losing, but actually this might not be an issue, is that basically post filter for one of the pods in the pod group enables other pods, the next pods, to be scheduled. But actually, this is the problem for preemption. This is actually a problem, not a feature, right? Because this is what delayed preemption was trying to solve, that we do not want to to run the preemption, because then we can run preemptions and in the end we can still fail the pod group cycle. So that's another thing.
So one more question, Maciej, could you remind me what are we doing? What we are doing right now in the code? We are disabling all the post filters for when TAS is enabled.
No, we are disabling only
the default preemption. Okay.
Default preemption, yes. And I think the agreement we found the thread on Slack channel with the owner of the out of 3 post filter plugins, right? That they're from the repository. And we agreed that if someone is enabling alpha features on their cluster, they should also be able to handle the custom plugins if they are not working as expected with the alpha feature.
But that's no longer true for beta, right? Features, I would say.
Yes.
Maciek?
Yeah, so in my opinion, not calling post filter will be much easier in the code when we just do one call after the loop cycle, especially if we avoid calling disruptive post filters, right? Because as I mentioned, that could be post filters that do not do disruptive actions, but only do some observability or something like that. And one issue with not having post filters is that the post filters now have access to pod statuses that they can use to perform some actions. So we could consider having something similar on the pod group level. So the current use cases, if that then can be maintained. But I'm not sure what are the use cases. Maybe we should go through the GitHub and see what are the custom plugins on the post filter to know what should we support and what not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we agree that should be part of the beta promotion, right? For work order preemption. Or
Yes.
I think Dominic, you were okay.
Yeah, so I think the simple argument for running post filters on the top level only is that it's like scheduling. We have to look into scheduling of a whole pod group to take a reasonable decision, not on a single pod level. And it's similar here. To make a reasonable decision for a whole workload, we need to look for the part that is preemptible and take decision at that level, like what action should be considered, what action should be proposed. So probably doing it at pod level in case of our algorithm, which repeats scheduling several pods several times. We probably don't want to repeat post filters several times. Cleanup actions are exception because they are safe to be performed, and so no special decision has to be taken. But these actions are exceptions, and they generalize to any of the disruption action.
Yes, and also one other thing is that with the placement visible plugin, we may skip even considering some plugins if we see that the min count is cannot be met with the remaining pods. And in that case, we even wouldn't call any post filters for these pods. So maybe it's better to just move the use cases to the pod level post filter.
true. Any other words on that? I guess we should discuss a bit more properly on the cap update and
Yes, I will include that in the cap update for world order preemption to beta.
sounds good. All right. Any other topic? If anyone wants to discuss something. All right. So let's wrap it up. So thanks everyone for joining today. Have a great week and see you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me.